same time as the Sex Pistols were happening in England, you had a band called the Saints in Brisbane, you know, in their own sort of habitat, coming up with an amazing song like I'm Stranded. So Australia had a lot to contribute to the whole punk scene.
Mushroom put out that Suicide album, which was all the punk bands from the era, you know, the Birthday Party, and that was a real influence for a lot of people.
Michael has always been fairly progressive, and he had this guy Barry come up, who'd just been hanging out in London and came back and said, you know, this is where it's at, and Michael said, okay, let's do a punk label, and you know, we did one record, and it was a bloody disaster.
It was really rock and roll decadence. You know, we really did the real English record company hype type situation, which I think was a mistake because it really made the label look like a bit of a joke to the people that really lived and believed in punk music.
Everyone involved in the punk rock scene thought it was a big joke.
Nick Cave and the Boys Next Door were signed. The teenage radio stars that featured James Freud and Sean Kelly, who had enormous success with the Models, came out of it. So if the label achieved no real commercial success and really achieved nothing, but it did bring a couple of great names and a couple of names that Mushroom worked together with for many years to come.
In 1973 in Perth, I had a punk band called Puss. So by the time Suicide Records came out, I felt I'd already done all that stuff. You know, to me, imitating the Sex Pistols was just as bad as imitating Fleetwood Mac or the Eagles. I wanted to create something from Laminex tables and from Hills hoists, the everyday stuff of suburban life, and I called this music suburban rock.
Just a suburban boy, and I know what it's like to be rejected every night, and I'm sure that it must be.
In the latter 70s, there was this need for a new music. You had punk on one side, but in Australia, punk could never be, you know, you go outside, London's not burning here, the sun's shining.
We had our own thing. You know, it's like rap, for me, doesn't work here in the same way because we have different lifestyle. There are some kids that believed it and lived it, but the majority it was, you know, just part of the tastemakers.
We were much more on the new wave rock and roll thing, and that's where West Sports and Jojo Zep came in.
The sports got popular on the local level, and I think it was that change in the whole of Australia and music where people were actually writing their own things. We would actually learn a song and be in such a hurry to perform it that we would actually do it that night. Drive the bass player crazy, you know, and the drummer crazy because they hardly knew it, and we were forcing them to do it quickly, but we just couldn't wait to play our stuff to people.
That's why I like to know who listens to the radio.
One of the problems with the Sports was they were inconsistent.
The most popular new group of 1978, Sports.
Steve Cummings was very moody. When he was on, he was one of the greatest performers I'd ever been with, but he used to put the band off because if everything wasn't right, you'd know it.
Stephen Cummings is like someone from another world, really. Especially Cummings against Gudinski was like Jack Kerouac meets Henry James. You know, they just didn't speak the same language.
Band that should have cracked America, incredible talent, but just didn't have that last bit of star quality.
Michael yearns for the heights of showbiz, you know, in a lot of ways. And our band was absolutely not that at all. We were hopeless at height. Michael really never, I don't think, adjusted to our low-level, low vibe way of doing things.
We got pretty popular. We got very popular very quickly, and I think we got a crowd together. We weren't able to sell records though, so that was very frustrating to be in that band on that level.
The magic of JoJo Zepp and the Falcons was just a live performance vibe. A baseball stadium in the United States springs to mind. And we're on the same bill as Journey, Cheap Trick, Black Sabbath, and the Southern boogie band Molly Hatchet. And the Falcons have come out going, you got to keep a foot in, a run in, a hide in, because they're going to get you. Man, they hated us. They threw everything at us. They threw baseballs, they threw coins, they threw cherry bombs, these explosives, you know. Camilleri just stood there and he said, you know, this egg sort of flew past. He said, geez, you rotten shots. No wonder you lost the Vietnam War. Man, if they'd been angry prior to that, it must have lifted them about like 75%. We played for 40 minutes and walked off stage and said thanks for the loan of the hall and the piano. And it was, you know, just a visiting Australian rock band, mate.
Let those hearts begin to flow.
Say, don't be such a nasty boy. You want to squeeze me tight and call me honey. Counting out now, one by one.
One of the frustrations in the sense that we travelled America together, came very close to cracking it. Still in America, occasionally I have people say to me, whatever happened to JoJo Zepp and the Falcons? Camilleri, an absolute talent.
Bad is good, good's forever. Words and music go together.
Michael and Mushroom had survived because Michael realised early on the way to survive was to have a lot of fingers and a lot of pies and be able to, if you like, cross-collateralise.
Where's the cash? You see us again, 450 in the last hour. Try and do some comparisons, huh?
And if we can't do it, technically, we try to do it.
Frontier touring feeds into Mushroom, feeds into Premier, feeds into Mushroom Music, feeds into ATM, the merchandising. And that's the reason he's been able to keep Mushroom Records, which is in fact probably the least financially viable of his companies going, but it's the one he feels most passionate about.
Oh, I love it. Can you write a list of the new songs and factors for me? Where's the bus?
Happens in the lane.
It's only a monopoly because no one's been good enough to knock it off. I mean, there's plenty of holes there. You could drive a semi through it if you wanted to. No one got rich out of it. Everything you made went back in. And Michael did that for years and years.
You know, a gold record in Australia is 35,000 copies. You can't pay a lot of bills off 35,000 sales. So the reason that we've got the different arms is as an independent organisation, it's given us the strength to go through the hard financial times. It's given us the financial backing to spend more money on our artists.
The models were very much in-house with Mushroom, and Michael has a tendency to have control over everything. You know, we were signed to his publishing company and his recording company and his T-shirt company, and, you know, I mean, he kind of, you know, I'm sure he was very comfortable.
And Norman Gunston.